Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about anesthesia machine related issues that we've encountered during our training. So make sure you stay until the end when you get to hear about the number one person you want to have in your corner for any of your questions or issues you have with your machine.
And we're back.
Where did we go?
We went for problems of our machine. That's what we're going to talk about. Anybody have had problems with their machine?
I told you that machine and I.
Machine problems
Sometimes
are
we're
inevitable.
friends.
They are inevitable. They're going to happen. You know, it's like intubation issues or any other issues with anesthesia. They say if you haven't had anything happen, you haven't been doing it long enough.
Exactly.
Like,
It's
it's
the
going to happen.
experience.
That is so true. What did you call me about one day? And I was like, well, think about it. The more things that go wrong with the machine, the better expert you become.
And
100%.
do it while you're in school.
Correct.
Look dumb while you're in school because we already look dumb. So
What they say, calm waters don't make skilled sailors. Isn't that how it
Yeah.
goes? Something like that. Like, you won't really learn how to sail until you done hit that storm, you know? You hit these rough waves and all that. So I think that goes into, like you said, helping you to be a better provider, better troubleshooter. You know, you be the one that, you know, if something not going on with this machine, they say, call Judy or call Lindsay. You know, kind of make you feel good because they know you're weathered. You know, you went through some things. So.
because you messed up enough.
Right, you messed up enough. Like what a guy told us that.
Correct.
Said I'm here because I messed up enough to know what not to do.
That's why I become an expert at it now.
Yep.
Let's start at the beginning, from the top. Like,
Great time for that.
do
to
you
come
guys check your machines the way that school taught you to do it?
No, because our machines are not that old.
Okay.
Ding 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 ding. I
And
bet
if-
every anesthesia student can say that.
And if I ever got to the machine that was that old, I will pull up the 1993 FDA machine check and I will follow the list.
And she actually would. She's not just saying that.
Yeah, well, most of them gonna do it themselves anyway.
Yeah,
nowadays.
you just hit go and you do what it tells you
But
to do.
I will say I always do my pressure check.
Yep.
And
Between cases.
Yeah. Oh,
Sometimes I forget.
definitely I do just because, you know, I didn't at first, and then, you know, a CRNA kind of hit me to that. Like, I always do it. You want to check for leaks and everything to make sure you can hold pressure. And at the beginning of the day, I always check my tank. Like, regardless.
The
of
tank is a big one for
I
me.
check my tank for sure.
The other one, I plead the fifth.
Yeah,
What's
I
that?
mean to. A lot of times I do.
I do
that?
for the most part.
The pressure check.
The pressure check in between,
Yeah,
I'm going to be honest, I should, and you have to, but I'm going to plead the fifth on that one.
yeah.
Sorry,
Have
dude.
you ever had a situation where your bellows won't come up?
Yep.
Why? Why did it happen?
Expiratory hose.
Okay, that's
Expiratory what?
The
Hole?
hose was
Hose.
off.
one of the limbs.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was like, you know, of course, you just have to really just.
You're like flushing with the O2
Yeah,
button.
you looking and see what's not happening here, you know, and you really. My main thing was just realizing that my sats were still good. So, you know, you kind of have to look at the whole picture, right? Yeah, you're worried because you see your bellows not going up. However, you hear your sats. You know, you see the number. I got a little time. You saw how they were to intubate or to ventilate. You kind of have all those things in the back of your head while you're trying to troubleshoot. Which initially I was not that way. It was like something goes wrong. It's like,
I
they're
can't
gonna
see.
die if I don't fix this right. You know.
Yeah.
So it's nervo.
I had a situation early on where my bellows weren't coming up. It was a Whipple, so they have to have an NG tube. And I don't know how I did it. I think it takes true skill. I put the NG tube in their lungs.
And ever since then, every time I drop an NG and an OG, the first thing I do, if I have one of those bellows that come up that you can see, I turn around, I'm like, well, bellow's still up, I guess I'm in the belly.
Yep. And we sat there, and because it was the first case of the day, of course I had pressure checked my tubing because I did the whole machine check. So when the anesthesia tech came in, he was like, is your tubing good? I was like, yes. I could honestly say yes. And then from there, he's, you know, changing flow sensors. No one can figure it out. No one can figure it out. And finally, I took the NG tube and I just pulled it out. And suddenly my bellows came up. And I was like, I'm sorry I put this in their lungs. Can someone else place the NG tube now?
How?
I don't know.
That's the
She,
question.
that's why she said
inflated
she had
balloon.
amazing skill. Had she tried to do it, she would have failed. But then, hey, the
You
tube
have an
went
inflated
there.
balloon through the glottis.
That's America's
And-
Got Talent right there. That's a real. How the heck?
I know. I felt bad. I felt really bad.
But it
I've never done.
happens.
I've
That's
never dropped
amazing
a-
though. Like that you able. I mean, I know you didn't want to, but you know, like who could do that? Like you got this much of a
Dang.
chance to get that in.
Yep.
with the
Yeah.
balloon.
So and now every time I drop an NG tube, I'm
NG
little more
tubes have given me
para-
the blues
yeah.
over the course of not even just anesthesia school, but nursing.
Yeah.
It just, some people say wind it up and, you want to go with the curvature and this, that, lift the head and tilt it down and all this other stuff. And it's just, no matter what I do, I'm 50-50. It's like hit or miss.
Well, next time you drop one and your bellows don't come up, you just think about this story.
Pull it out.
This is what it is.
I had another time my bellows didn't come up. In our machines, you can see the bellows. Some you can't, but ours you can see it. And I flipped him to the vent right after intubated him, and the bellows didn't catch. So I flipped it back to the bag,
Then do it again.
flipped it again, and then the bellows started moving. It was weird, and I've only had that happen once.
Troubleshooting, though. It's just like not freaking out and saying, okay, let's see what this does. Let's see what that does. Early on, I didn't know my limitations as to what I could do in the middle of the case while that patient was already paralyzed and intubated. Like if you could turn the machine off, if you can turn it back to spontaneous. I'm thinking if you don't do everything exactly to the T, how you're supposed to do it or how you've learned to do it, I just, it's those fears of the unknown, I guess, when you start having so many unknowns.
Yeah.
I didn't, they just go, oh yeah, back to spontaneous breathing. I'm like, they're gonna die. What are you doing? Like, can they get the gas? Like, they're gonna wake up. But, it's really just learning to be calm through it all. Trust your monitors, look at your patient, be fine.
I have attached the entitled CO2. You know the Omeda A6 that has a defin? And
Most
then
of
the
us
little.
don't know what machines we're using. Let's be
Well,
real. We're like, I don't know. It's
now
white.
pay attention to which one. But I have attached where you're supposed to twist your little simple line to the next hole that is next to it that looks just like it. And here we are looking for entitled CO2. We can't find entitled CO2, but I'm like, I have condensation, I have chest rise, and I have good breath sounds. What is going on? No entitled CO2. Well then, you had it in the wrong
Oh,
hole the whole time. It would be very helpful if you put
Hate
it
it
where
when
it's
that
supposed to go. So that's one little thing that has happened to me.
I've had it where the entitled sample line isn't all the way tight into the defend, and you get like a really weird looking entitled waveform, and you're like, I know they're paralyzed. This isn't, and then you kind of just, you check at the patient, you take along the line, you check in the machine, and then it twists all the way in, and then suddenly your entitled looks normal.
I've had that happen.
or if you have places where you can't really depend on the end title because the machines and everything's so old, you really have to, okay. All right, we can't depend on that. We can't really depend on, the MAC concentration, so trust the patient. You gotta look at the patient now. And you gotta look at what's going on in the procedure. You gotta look at how they're breathing, their end title. I mean, you really have to.
That's next level.
Wait, and I've been to those sites where, all of your vitals and everything are on different screens, and one looks like the Matrix. So it's like, it's that old. It's a black screen with green writing on it. So it's like, yeah, and they're like, yeah, don't worry about that. Sometimes that's off. No, it's not working today. All right, so you gotta look at the patient now. Okay.
Correct. Delivering gas without being able to measure the amount of gas that you're giving because the analyzer, for some reason, went off, like right in the middle of the case. And the whole time, 3 different people came in trying to fix it. So now you're giving gas, you dial it in, but you don't have a clue
That's how much the concentration.
how much, and then it can't read how much entitled gas the patient has. So then what do? You don't stop the procedure. Luckily it was a systole, so it was gonna be short. Just say, let's see what the blood pressure says. If the blood pressure is too low, then we'll dial back. But otherwise, until then, we're
I feel like
flying
I'd rather-
blind.
What would you
Convert
do?
to TIVA
You
because
would
I
go to TIVA?
know.
Yeah, it
Because
was
lot
a
of people-
systole.
how
By
many
the time-
people ASA4 and their blood pressure is just going to drop with gas. Period.
True. But it was so short. That's a great idea, converting to a T5 and be done with it. But it was a systole. It was so short. By the time we would have primed the pump and getting going, the procedure would have been over. So we just went with the blood pressure. Patient sustained it. We never knew what how much SIVO the patient got that day. But
Yeah.
that's what it is.
I've also done in the morning on machine check. Someone already had a circuit on, which rarely happens, and I didn't realize that entitled CO2 wasn't plugged into the defend. So if you go through your machine check on some of these newer machines, it'll tell you you have a 500, is it 250 to 500
I think
mil
so.
per minute leak?
Leak, yeah.
Yeah, so then you call your
Because it's
anesthesia
plugged
tech.
in?
Because it's not plugged in.
Because it's not plugged in?
Yeah, so it's open and it's detecting a leak somehow in the system. And so I called my tech. My tech comes in, knew exactly. I told him how much leak I had, and he walked in and just plugged in my Entitle CO2.
That
Rechecked
was
it,
And
was
that worked.
fine.
Well, I've had instances where if it was plugged in, it was a leak. You know, so I've went to the ideal of not plugging it in at all, and I haven't had any. You know, but it all depends on
The machine you're
which
on.
machine.
This
you're
was like a
on.
newer machine and it
Yeah.
had to be plugged in.
Yeah, and you all find out the different
They're
machines.
all different.
Man, I've been to one site where it was like 6 different machines.
Yeah.
6 different machines.
Correct.
Like in my first, few rotations.
Yeah.
So, wow.
And then your eyes don't know where to look.
Right.
for everything. They're not
and,
trained.
And then if they're on different screens, like I was just saying, sometimes you'll have 2 screens here, one there, and you turn on the machine with a switch here. Others you turn it on with a button. It's just like, all right,
And
so
then
where's
you're
my
looking.
entitle? Where's my Mac? You just trying to find it. So it's real. That's why it's very important. I was talking to a lot of our students who are starting their first rotations to get there early enough so you can become familiar at least with your first case's machine.
Man, it took me a long time to know what all the numbers on my screen were, although I looked at them every day. I think it's only after 2 months that I noticed the FI CO2, which related to my CO2 absorbent.
Oh yeah,
And
that shouldn't have too many numbers on that.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, you get so tunnel vision that it's in front of you, but you don't see it. Since I don't look for entitled O2, it's not something I'm looking for in intubating or during the case. I'm like, wait, what does that say? Why is it high? I think I called Lindsay that one, and she's like, your CO2 absorber
Yeah,
is
and then you
probably
see that.
exhausted. I'm like, oh man, like, no duh. But that'll happen. Well, it happened to
Well,
me.
just even like the first time getting a good seal on the mask and seeing end title while
Or
they're
seeing
just,
that volume.
and you're like, oh, that's the true end title O2. It's actually 30. I think you
Correct.
told me that. You were like, no, you have to get a good seal to really know their end title O2 because otherwise it just says 95. And you think, we're good.
Right.
And then as soon as you take the mask off when you push your drugs, their sats are 80.
Do y'all always do like the 3 minutes or the 4 to 6 vital capacity breaths for
The 4 to 6
oxygenation?
vital capacity breath.
Take a deep and reach down to your toes and all of that.
It depends on
Correct.
how confident I feel about intubating them quickly. If I'm like, I don't know, I'm like, your end title needs to go as high as we can.
No, but I try to at least get the entitled to.
But some people
and it
you
does
get
What do you want it
sometimes
to? You want it greater than 70, greater than 80?
No, I like it in the 90s.
90s?
Just so that I can buy myself the time to, if I need to.
Are you
intubate.
closing your APL valve to actually get them popped open?
Sometimes I will do some alveolar recruitment, yes.
Okay, because I feel like you get to.
recruitment. Oh, we talking big words now, baby.
Okay, but how many times are you sitting there and you have a good seal on your mask and you're like, it's still they're entitled at O2,
If it's like
50.
89, that's
It's
different.
50, and it's just like, and now it's 45.
Right now, we finna sit. You better breathe.
I know, but when they're like 500 pounds, your doc will be like, 50 is the best you're gonna get.
Well,
Go.
if this
Oh, yeah, they
patient's
make you go
disease
before you're ready
process,
all the
correct,
time.
does not allow you to, then I'm not gonna make you. But generally speaking, for most people, I absolutely try to.
All right, I get it. I do too. Just because, especially if they're, big body habitus and all that, and, we already predicting that they're going to desat, I'm like, no.
Or they
like,
recently
one
got
of the-
COVID.
Right. That's one of the first things I'm going to do. After I put that blood pressure cuff on, I'm getting the oxygen mask on before I'm doing everything. And I know, people that say, well, you should do this, put on the SAT monitor, and you put on your other, and do all this other stuff. I'm like, at least passively, let's breathe in some oxygen right now.
Yeah.
Because they're already breathing fast, probably because that's how they live, breathing, really quickly. So that's huge for me, is trying to make sure that they have a good amount of oxygen on board with that, pre-ventilation.
What other problems have you had with the machine itself?
I've had check defend.
I've had on the Draeger, they'll have these full of water a lot of times. And
Oh, it's talking in the
The
entitle?
defend.
in the defend itself.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it's not
Where the
labeled
end title-
defend, where the end title is the
Yeah,
water
yeah,
trap.
I had that before. You said
A lot
in
of
which
their
one?
Full of water, the
Draeger?
Draegers. because it's very
Which do y'all
different.
like better, Draeger or Daytech?
I don't have a
Daytech.
preference.
Daytech or Meta?
I think it's so much simpler
Isn't there
because I
another
can
one out?
see things.
We
Is there
use
another
GE
one?
Healthcare as well.
Gee, there it is.
And that one's pretty. But the machine check takes longer.
Well, there is a downside.
Yeah.
I
But like
don't-
the first time that came up, I was like, oh no, why does it say this? And my CRNA just popped it out. I didn't know you could
Shakes
even,
it.
Yeah, I didn't even know you could pop them out.
What?
And he just like hit it on the anesthesia table and popped it back in, and the message went away. I was
I've
like,
had continuous pressure message because, yes, I know I'm doing that on purpose because I'm trying to do some, like when I'm reversing my patient, I want their alveoli to pop a little, so I pop up my PO and the machine tells me continuous pressure. I'm like, silence. I do know that.
Thank you for no.
Thank you. But you can also change the setting on that one, which I found out later on. And then, have you guys ever had any valve, inspiratory, expiratory valve
Sticking or
issues?
something like that.
Do you even look at them?
Oh, I always do.
I look at him.
I do.
Okay, one big tip is you have to look at them, and I think you have to know which is your inspiratory and your expiratory limb, because I've many times put my circuit on. Some of them tell you inspiratory,
Yeah, the
expiratory.
arrows.
But in the circuit, they both fit in, so you just put it however. And I've had a CRNA pointed it out to me. I'm like, oh.
You mean just for like specifically the filter and just like wanting the
Right.
filter to be filtered
Correct.
before it gets to the machine? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's what got pointed out to me too. I used to just literally.
Correct.
Not even thinking
Depending
about
on the
anything.
circuit and the machine that you have.
And you know some have that single circuit,
I've
single
never
tube.
used the single one.
It's you know it's just weird when you first see it. It's no big deal, but it's definitely weird when you're used to two tubes and now you have one big one. It's like, so it's inside of the other. Yeah, it's literally inside of it.
Yeah,
It's weird.
and it's like they're purple.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures from.
It's purple and then it has like an inner tube inside of that.
And have you had issues where they lost pipeline O2?
No, but that's why I always
No.
check my
We've had that.
tank. That's why I always
In the
check
middle
my
of the
tank.
case, the whole hospital, something happened. There was an
I heard
electrical
about this.
issue. You heard about
I
that
heard
one.
about this like the whole
And
day or
it was.
something.
I was very grateful to be there to see what was done. It was really not a big deal, but you're like, oh, sugar. I guess that's why you got to check
Oh,
your
sugar.
tank. That's my code word for
Yeah, that.
that. When time you hear me say
Oh,
sugar,
poo.
because one time I don't remember what happened. I didn't know I could do it. I was at the head of the bed doing something, and I went, oh in front of the entire OR, and I'm like, I need a new code word.
Word.
So I came up with sugar. So I say sugar all the time, and nobody knows what I'm saying. But
They will
But-
know now.
they surely will. But yes, that has happened. It's like, thank goodness, I actually always check my O2 tank. I always do, and I have a good amount, so it worked out.
Yeah, I'm definitely checking that tank. They look at me crazy when I'm like, yeah, so we need another tank. And they're like, I gotta get another. Yeah, we gotta get another tank, please.
Well, yeah,
Because
I mean,
want something to happen.
You change your tank, and your hands are all brown from the rust from these old tanks, and you're just like,
Yeah, because nobody ever checked it before.
I
you-
did a good thing. I did a good thing, and my hands are disgusting. Ew.
Another one that I had was where I must have done at least, I'm not exaggerating, 8 machine checks that day because it was a Draeger and it just would not give me the okay that it was tendered and it passed. Only to find out 8 checks later that the CO2 absorbers with that particular machine,
Weren't compatible.
they crack very often.
All the CO2 absorbers, I'm told, can crack very
Yes, but
easily.
these are like super sensitive, and then people handle them however way and throw them everywhere, and I didn't know that. So that's another thing. If you on a Draeger and it's not giving you the okay, and you know you've done everything, you have no leaks per se,
Change
you
your
look
CO2
at your absorber.
Like
I've
Draeger gonna
changed.
be in the comments like, look, I don't know what kind of check you guys are doing, but our product.
I would say all of them. I would say all
Our
of them.
product.
It is all of them. But it's true.
I know
All of
it's
them.
all of them because, like, they say, turn your flows up, or at least I'm taught, turn your flows up before you change your CO2 absorber in the middle of the case.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's cracked and you just threw that away,
It's a lot of your gas.
yeah, now you're in a situation where you need someone else to get you another CO2 absorber. You got to crank up your gas. It's just a mess. So they
I
say
wouldn't change it
don't
until
change
I
it
got
in the
one.
middle of the case.
Yeah.
Just turn your flows up so that they're not breathing in all that end tidal, rebreathing.
Have you had your gas run out of gas in the middle of a case?
Yes.
Yes.
First time it happened, I don't know why I freaked out. I was like, okay, what do I do?
So what let you know that your gas was out? Other than, did you see it on the monitor? It was saying that your
The
gas
monitor
is gone?
told me that I was.
Or did you see like your Mac just wasn't?
No.
You're like, hold up.
I
got this thing up cranked up. They only bring me
I
that
was-
much.
I had the alarm and I looked and I was like, well, I don't have much left. I didn't let it go completely, and I'm like, I need to add more. And
You go
the
to the
one
drawer
that
and
I
there's none in
used,
there.
had it been one of those where you
Every
have
time.
the 2 vaporizers, and I would have just switched. But this one was the cassette ones. So,
Lock those boys in.
correct. So, I texted the CRNA. I said, well, I'm in a room by myself here. And
Which never happens.
True.
Yeah.
And,
Asterisk.
and I don't know what to do. And I just thought about it afterwards. I'm like, very simple. Flip the patient. You don't even have to flip the patient, she says.
Well, I was told if you open it without turning it off, it'll kind of spray up at you.
Well, I did not do that.
Open it without
So
turning it off.
I turn the vaporizer off,
Yeah,
I
for
open
sure.
it, and then
So
But I was told, if you have to do it, you go ahead and turn your flow down.
that's what you do. You turn your flow down.
and I flip them off.
Yeah, I do
Just
too.
because I'm like, well, we're gonna be
Spontaneous.
fine
Correct.
for
They'll
a
stay
minute.
in. They're not breathing.
Exactly.
So I'll
Spontaneous
flip-
breathing,
I'll
just
flip
sit
'em
there. Can't get it off.
Room air
Can't get it in.
trial.
Correct.
It's only
But-
for a few seconds anyway. I mean,
that's
and
true.
that's what I was saying. Like, in our previous episode, is just, once you figure out you're okay, not freaking out about everything that goes wrong. Like if you have good, if you have good
Good things.
SpO2,
Oh.
they aren't desatting. Like you have a second. Like
Yeah.
relax.
Take a
walk
deep breath.
through. Yeah, and I had to tell myself that because I'd be like, they're gonna die. On the inside, of course. Now that's another thing. Definitely, you got to try to keep it together
Yeah.
under pressure. You can't freak out outwardly.
Yeah.
You do it inwardly, that's cool. Nobody
Right.
can see that. My armpits are like in the middle. I'm wet. But they wouldn't know that. I'm walking
Yeah.
through everything I need to do.
It's like,
I hope I
be
look
like
cold.
a duck.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of circulators come back and said, I thought that was a tough situation earlier, and you remained, I think you handled it well. And I'm like, if you were inside of me, you would not think so. But especially the machine. The machine for me, I'm gonna be very honest, is my weakness.
Yeah.
And I try as much as I can. Unfortunately, I don't have text. Because if I did, I would absolutely pick their brains on
No,
so
that's
many
a
different
beautiful
thing.
thing when you have
They are a
text.
wealth of information.
So piece of advice, you have text, be there, befriend them, go in early.
Yep.
Don't wait till you have an issue to get to know them. Get to know them and learn the machine inside and out as much as you can. Because that's your moneymaker,
Yep.
For sure.
I like it.
right?
And
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yeah, go, go, go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way, or the highway. And in the driveway is a nice range. Cause I grind through the climb, I invite pain. You'll never hear me, bitch, nah, I don't complain. Just gotta flip the switch and you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They'll deceive with the negativity, but I just slide right by that energy. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go. You got a mind, but even that could change. You could flip the gray matter like some batter in your brain. That's why they say, fake it till you make it A. And if you play that game, then you just might make a change. Rearrange all the bad to okay. Take Take the worst thoughts saying, turn them to a game. Take the best thoughts saying, put them on display. On repeat in your brain till you're feeling no more pain. Never slow yourself down, you can do some more. Push past all the pain.